Welcome to Advocate for Wellness. I'm your host, Ann Kasper. Today we have Youth Voices. Our first guest is Clarissa McGee. She is the Family and Youth TAEA Services Coordinator. Our next guest is Carrie Kerber, age 19. She's a youth mentor. And we have Zarek O'Neill. He's age 17 and also youth mentor. So we'll start with Clarissa. Clarissa, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with mental health issues?
So about 9 years ago, I discovered that my 4 children had some issues, and I had lots of friends who had children at the same time, and I kept thinking, there's something a little bit different about my children.
Really? You thought that? It's just this different behavior, but it was really different behavior.
Right, really, really different behavior. So I took them to a psychiatrist, and they were all 4 diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
All 4 of them. What ages were they at the time they were diagnosed?
7, 8, and 10 and 11.
So pretty young.
As after that diagnosis, things continued to get worse, and what happened after that was they slowly got more and more diagnoses, and my 2 younger children actually ended up going to the hospital, and they were diagnosed both with bipolar 1 and
How old were they at that time when they were diagnosed?
8 and 7.
Wow.
And they both went at the same time to the hospital, and then were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and bipolar 1. So over the next 8 years, my daughter, who is now 15, was hospitalized 8 times in residential treatment. And my son, who is now 14, has been in the hospital 4 times and in residential treatment.
Sounds really difficult on them, but also on the family. Can you talk about how that was for the family?
Well, so all of us ended up with diagnoses of post-traumatic stress disorder. Some of that from the domestic violence situation that we were living in, and some of that from my children's own mental illness. So they were very active, but also very aggressive and sometimes violent with each other.
Wow. How did you get support?
For a long time I didn't. I didn't know any of the supports that were out there, and none of my friends or family members were interested in talking about mental health or knew anything about mental illness. I eventually found my way to NAMI of Washington County, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and many people had suggested that I go there, but I thought it was only for adults.
Okay, it's taking care of people with adults with mental illness, right? Is that okay?
Right. So when I finally skidded into the parking lot in pretty bad shape at NAMI of Washington County, I discovered that they do have a children's program there, and I was able to find support for myself as well as my children.
Great.
I had no understanding of mental illness or the depth of the struggles that we would have.
What are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way?
Well, one thing is I never understood the phrase, "it is what it is." And then over time, I slowly began to understand the depth of that phrase, to be able to accept our situation as it is what it is, and it will get better, and sometimes it'll be worse, but it's okay.
Are all your children on medications right now?
They have been in the past. A couple of my children have chosen not to take medication, and we talk about personal accountability for recovery and wellness, and that is their personal choice to not take medication or to take medication. And so they are looking at other avenues for wellness. And then 2 of my children do take medication.
Okay, great. Anything else you'd like to say about your family situation?
Well, like I said, I didn't know anything about mental illness, and I didn't realize the impact that it would have on me as their primary caregiver. And slowly over time, I discovered that I myself had mental health issues, and some of it was from taking care of them, like a secondary post-traumatic stress disorder, because it was very stressful to have to go to the hospital and to have my children in the hospital repeatedly.
Yes.
And then I realized that I also have major depression.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and talk with Carrie right now. Carrie, you're a student at PCC, right? What do you study?
I'm just taking a writing class and a math class right now.
Okay. Which one do you like better?
I like them both. I
Oh.
really like math, but I also really like to write.
Great. What are some of your hobbies?
Just hanging out with friends and general things.
Great. And Zarek, too, you're a student?
Yeah, I go to a PCC with Carrie. I take a kind of a collective of classes. I particularly like my math class just because it's very enjoyable for me.
Oh, great. Any hobbies you want to talk about?
I do a little bit of a wood shop, just kind of pass the time.
Mm-hmm. Great. And you're involved in NAMI of Washington County as youth mentors. What's a youth mentor?
Youth mentor, we have a youth group on Saturdays, and we hang out with the kids and help teach them life skills to deal with mental illness that they have, and I can't think of the right words to say.
Kind of elaborate. We also kind of will play with them, and if they get into conflict or there's a problem that arises, we help them to look at the situation and develop lifelong skills of how to interact with that situation without it being without fallout or huge conflict. And if they do have that, how to actively seek help when they need it.
And you teach them also how to live with their families and find peace with their families too, I'm guessing?
A lot of that, just because the families, there's a lot of stress in the household because most of the children we deal with are very high cases or high diagnoses, and they're very just all over the place. So we kind of help them to understand where their parents are coming from and help the parents understand where the kids are coming from.
Wow. How old are these kids that you're working with?
I believe the age group is from 10 to 16.
Okay. So you guys are a little bit older than them, right?
Yeah.
So, great. And so youth mentors are people who have gone through similar experiences, people with mental health challenges. Can you tell us a little bit about your stories?
I was diagnosed when I was in 7th grade, and started taking medications and have gone through struggles since then, changing diagnoses, and I've been hospitalized 7 times, which was unfortunate, but I think I'm in a better place now because of it. And
Great, thank you. And Sarah?
I was diagnosed at 3 different points in my life. When I was around 5, I was diagnosed with an ADHD, and then around 8th grade, I was diagnosed with a depression, and then a year after that, I was diagnosed with PTSD due to domestic violence growing up. So I've kind of been all over the board with my diagnoses and throughout my life, but I feel like in recent years, I've kind of come to terms with what had happened to me and how my actions reflect what I do, and what happened to me doesn't impact my life, and I impact it.
Oh, Wow, you impacted. Great. And how did it feel like getting a diagnosis for you guys?
For me, it
Yeah.
was kind of terrifying just because it was like someone else was saying, this is wrong with you. We need to find a way to fix what's wrong with you. And I felt like when I was at that age that it was like somebody was telling me that there's something wrong with you. And I've come to terms with it now, knowing that it's not necessarily something that I did that is causing what is wrong with me. It's a chemical imbalance, and it's something that I feel like I need medication prescribed by a psychiatrist to help balance it out and live with the everyday.
And you're living successfully every day, right?
Yeah.
Going to school and
Yep.
hanging out with your friends. Great.
Yeah.
And Zarek, how about for you? How did it feel?
For me, it was a little bit different. For me, it was more of a relief because I could put a face to kind of the monster that was behind what I was feeling and actually have some understanding of it's not my fault, it's this abstract thing that impacts my life, and here's how I can make it better.
Did you get support from your friends when you find this out? Did you tell your friends?
At first, I didn't tell my friends. I was living in Wisconsin, and my parents suggested that I go to a NAMI in Wisconsin to
Okay.
try and find some peer support because I was afraid to tell my friends that, oh, I've got some mental problems, because I didn't know how they would view me as a person or if they would think that that diagnosis was me. So that's when I discovered NAMI, and the people at NAMI were extremely helpful for me, and they helped me understand a little bit more about that just because you have a diagnosis doesn't mean you are a diagnosis.
Great. Clarissa, can you tell us a little bit about NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, what it is and how it helps people?
Sure. So NAMI is a peer-led organization. Just about every county has their own affiliate. Our affiliate is NAMI of Washington County. And we are blessed to have our own facility. So we are open 7 days a week, and we operate many support groups, peer-led support groups,
Right.
but also support groups for family members. And
And maybe now we can talk about those support groups.
Sure.
And we can talk about Youth Connections. What is Youth Connections?
so Youth Connects is a
Youth Connects, excuse me.
Youth Connects is a support group for youth ages 10 to 16, and it's for youth that have a mental health diagnosis, but also for youth that may have a family member that has a diagnosis, or they think they have a diagnosis. And we have youth mentors that provide support for the youth and education around social issues and around mental health issues and around family issues.
And being supports, right? And being that example that you can have a full life and do everything.
Right.
In recovery.
Right. And it also provides hope for not only the child that, you know, that they can get better and that they can learn how to deal with their issues, but also for the families to see there are young adults that have learned how to deal with their issues.
And Family Connects is...
And Family Connects meets at the same time, and that is for the parents of young children that have been diagnosed with mental illness.
What happens during the art group?
The art group is a wonderful group. We are very blessed to have a volunteer teacher from Portland Community College, and we find that while we're doing creative things, painting and sketching, that we're making friends and we're talking and we develop our own social network.
Great. And you have drop-in hours?
We do. Monday through Friday, we have drop-in hours of 9 to 3, and we're open 7 days a week for support groups.
sounds incredible. And one last group that we know about is the TAYA Connects. What is TAYA?
So TAYA stands for Transitional Age Young Adults, and
What ages?
They are 16 to 24.
Okay.
And again, for the young adults who either have a diagnosis or think they might, or have a family member that has a diagnosis. And basically the same things apply. They can come and get support for themselves, and kind of learn about the different diagnoses and the different struggles that they may have during their lives.
And NAMI Washington County is a nonprofit, right? So all of these classes are free
Correct.
for the public, right?
Everything we offer is free.
Does someone have to sign up, or can they stop by, or what's the best way?
There's no sign up necessary. Just drop by and come and check us out.
Okay, great. Zarek, you're involved in suicide prevention, right? Can you talk about that?
It was just, I think, this last summer, there was a suicide prevention council that formed, and it formed up into 3 different categories. I know me and Clarissa were both on the events and awareness, which really focused on the spreading the word that suicide is preventable and that there is a possibility to hit 0 suicides per year. Because
Wow.
in Washington County alone, I think it was 65 people commit suicide per year.
It's a lot, just in Washington County.
Correct.
And what do you do with suicide prevention? So you go and give information to people, or do you connect with youth, or how does that work?
Recently, we've had kind of since it just started, we're still trying to figure out what we want to do, but we plan to do events such as going into schools and really pushing the concept that it is okay to ask someone, "Are you suicidal?" And
Directly, you can ask that, right?
And you can save a life just by asking that question.
Wow. I wondered, could you guys share a little bit about your symptoms and your recovery? How did you recover to get to that? What does mental health recovery mean to you?
You can start.
Well, for me, my recovery started at a fairly young age. After I was diagnosed with ADHD, me and my mother kind of built our home and our lives around that, and
Okay.
understanding that, I'm just like everyone else. I'm just a little more hyperactive, and I have to run around a little bit. And then when my depression came, we understood that, this is just, again, I'm a little different than everyone. There are sometimes I just feel a little more sad, or there are just longer periods of time where I'm not as happy as other people. And instead of just having this big concept and big label pushed on me, we just kind of said, okay, this is what it is. Here's how we can change it. Here's what we can do to help you live a better and healthier life.
So taking proactive steps.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like your mother's very involved in
Yes.
this, right? Helps out a lot?
Yes.
Great. How about for you?
Well, when I first was diagnosed, I was pretty young, and so I didn't really know exactly what to do to help myself. So NAMI really helped me come up with coping skills and things, because I have a major symptom of mine is psychosis, hallucinations, visual and auditory. And so a big part of my recovery is finding ways, and I always have to find more ways to basically make them lessen and
Like
try
having
and
tools in a toolbox, right?
Right.
So it was like maybe meditation or getting quiet or music, or what kind of tools?
Music is extremely helpful. I ended up in a day treatment program, which really, really helped me.
And I'm going to ask you, what does day treatment mean? Because people wouldn't know.
Day treatment for me was I went to a building every day, 5 days a week, and I was there from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock at night. It's kind of like residential inpatient treatment, except you get to go home at night.
Okay.
Sleep in your own bed.
It takes the place of school, right?
Right. I had to do school with a specific teacher outside of class
Okay.
to keep up with my schoolwork. And so during the day I was in Green Bay, which was the city that I did it in Wisconsin. And then after school in the afternoon, I was at school doing the schoolwork that I would have been doing otherwise. And one of the best things that day treatment did for me was they basically taught me a lot of different skills. So I actually have, I don't have it at the moment, but I have a list of about 300 coping skills and about 50 grounding skills to use.
Can you name one grounding skill? What is it?
One of the best grounding skills that people use, especially when with PTSD and with hallucinations, is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is basically you look around the room and you name 5 things that you can see,
Okay.
and you name 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can feel, 2 things that you can either smell or taste, and then you say 1 good thing about yourself, and it kind of helps you come back into the here and now. But a lot of people don't know about it.
Well,
but it's
that's
helpful.
Great. Sounds great. Okay. Clarissa, can you talk about what kind of supports? Actually, they're involved in a campus program, right? Is NAMI running that? Or?
We're just in the developing stages of opening up a group. Zarek wanted to spearhead that group at NAMI, Portland Community College, Rock Creek campus, and it's called NAMI on campus. And so it would be a place where students could come to get support and education on mental health issues.
Right. Do you have any advice to young people if they see their friends acting a little bit differently? What would you tell them to do for their friends?
I'd say probably the most important thing is to talk to the person about it and see what is going on and see if there's any way you can help, and if it's a situation where you don't feel that you can help that person but you know someone else who can, maybe talk to them about talking to somebody else about it that can actually help them.
Okay.
Kind of along the lines of what Carrie said, but also understand that they may not be happy with if they say they're suicidal and you talk to someone about it and you get them help.
Right.
They may not be happy about it, but you have to do it, because otherwise it's just going to be a very dangerous situation.
And they'll be around to be upset about it.
Yeah.
They'll still be here.
Right. So that's really powerful. And also just to know that you can ask somebody directly, right? If you're going through mental health symptoms for yourself, how does it feel if someone comes up to you and asks you, are you depressed, or how does that feel for you guys?
For me, it kind of feels like they actually care.
Okay. Great.
For me, it's kind of a reality check of, oh, you're pointing it out to me, so maybe I do need to kind of look at myself and say, oh, hey, I am exhibiting these behaviors. Let's try and work on fixing that.
And what brought you to NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness? Just, you got referred to it, right? How about you, Zarek?
My mother actually is the executive director of the NAMI of Washington County. So I've kind of been there from the get-go.
How old were you when she started?
She started about 6 years ago-ish. So I've kind of been there for 6 years. I haven't always been actively participating, but I've at least known about it. It's only been about the past 3 years that I've actually gone in and made a real effort in helping the community and helping myself.
Wow, you guys sound terrific. Clarissa, can you talk more about family supports and how it's important to work with families? So for example, if my aunt or uncle have a child going through this, what can I do or say?
So there's a couple of answers to that. One is that, like we were saying, that talking to them about those issues really helps to destigmatize the situation, but also helping them to realize that it's okay to talk about it and that there is help out there and that there is hope. One of the most important programs that we offer at NAMI of Washington County is called the PACS program, which is Peer Advocacy and Community Supports, and it was actually developed by Zarek's mom, Laura, and basically it was developed out of need because it's very hard to find the right services and to get the help that you need.
And also that you can afford.
And also that you can afford. So the PACS program does individual appointments with family members, but also with peers, someone who has their own diagnosis or thinks they might. And we meet with them 3 times a day, and they can come in and find out about the different mental illnesses and
Recovery too, right?
and recovery, but also treatment, where they can go to get treatment, whether they have insurance or not, how they can get help paying for their medications, and also education about medications, and other treatments, alternative treatments that are out there.
What are some alternative treatments? Just quickly.
Acupuncture, massage, chiropractic care, and natural supplements, and then also diet and physical exercise.
I would like to thank you for coming on the show today. It's been an honor having you. And so Clarissa McGee, again, the Family and Youth TAEA Coordinator, Carrie Kerber, Youth Mentor, and Zarek O'Neill, Youth Mentor also. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on Advocate for Wellness. We'll see you next time.